This is a conversation with Libby, one of my dedicated students who has been on the inspiring journey of learning Polish. But this podcast is about so much more than language. Libby shares her journey of learning Polish after meeting her Polish husband Karol. But soon our conversation turns into something deeper, a reflection on culture, compassion, and the meaning of human connection. She opens up about the challenges of learning Polish while living in Scotland and New Zealand, what it's like to live in Whanganui, a town where the river has legal rights and Maori culture thrives. Her work in palliative care, helping people at the end of life, and why communication and dignity matter so much. How Karol ran a 100 kilometers ultramarathon to raise funds for her hospice, her big victory in a strictly com dancing style competition in New Zealand, and how she sees the future of AI in healthcare and language learning. This is an honest, warm, and inspiring conversation about life, death, language, and love across cultures and continents. My ultimate goal is to create the most engaging online Polish language course, and students like Libby continuously inspire and motivate me to make this vision a reality. But your involvement matters too. Together, let's build an extraordinary community for Polish learners worldwide. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which topics and resources would best support you in your Polish learning journey. Thank you. So the first question is, why did you start learning Polish?
I started learning Polish because I met a Polish man, as is probably the same for a lot of your students, probably.
Yeah.
I met Karol sort of several years ago now, and didn't know much about Poland, to be honest. I'd never been there or really learnt much about it. But I wanted to learn Polish so I could chat with his family more, so I could chat with his friends more and understand what everyone was saying. So that's why I started learning Polish with you.
Okay. And how did it feel at the beginning?
Hard. It still feels quite tricky. It's a difficult language, but it was a language that I was very different to any other languages I'd experienced before. You know, French and Spanish, which are our mainstays in the UK to learn at school, gave me a little bit of help when I was learning, but the pronunciation was very different to anything I'd ever learned before. So that was really interesting and a good challenge.
And what was like your first impression of Poland when you went there?
I really liked it. I mean, it was very welcoming to me because I was going to meet all of Karol's family and friends. So they were really excited to show me around, especially learning about the cuisine and the food. I really enjoyed that, trying out pierogis for the first time and all this type of thing. Yeah.
And when was your first time in Poland?
It was probably about 2018.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And did you go to Warsaw first?
Yes, Warsaw, yeah.
Okay. And do you remember any like funny situations around the language or something like this?
I remember, because as someone from Britain, we always have milk in our tea, right?
Yeah.
I found out the hard way that that meant in some areas in Poland that a woman could be pregnant. Is that right?
Yeah.
So when I my tea with Karol's mum, everyone started laughing. So that was quite an unusual one. But I think probably the funny ones are more when we have lessons and I say something that sounds like something else. It just doesn't quite match what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you two meet?
We actually met through Tinder, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's both our first dates through the app, which was very lucky. But we were both at Edinburgh University, which is why we met there.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about you and Karol with my student Cedric from Switzerland.
Yeah.
So now we can talk about him a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you meet with him?
I met Cedric. So Karol moved into his old flat, so they met through this. And I met him, it was just before COVID lockdown. I went to go and visit Karol in Switzerland. So I met Cedric and Marta then, which was lovely. I remember they made an amazing cheese fondue for us all. It was so good. And then once Karol came back to the UK, first thing we bought was a fondue kit.
Okay. And have you been to any other countries? I know you were born in the Netherlands, right?
Yes, I was born in the Netherlands. Yeah, but I only lived there for 4 years, so my memories of that aren't. I don't have a lot of memories from there, but I remember like little nursery rhymes and things like this.
But did you learn the language a little bit?
Yes. I think just from picking it up, when you're little, you pick up the language quite quickly.
Yeah.
But my parents are from the UK, so English has always been my first language.
But do you think you have a Scottish accent?
I don't know, to be honest. If I'm in Scotland, apparently I sound English, and if I'm in England, apparently I sound Scottish, so I'm not sure. But I was quite pleased the other day, because I'm now living in New Zealand. I was pleased the other day that one of my patients recognised that I was from the east coast of Scotland, and I was very impressed that they'd picked up on that, because that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I don't think you sound like very Scottish.
No.
So I was always wondering if this was because you were born in the Netherlands, or maybe just you have your own accent and that's all. Yeah.
I think it's because of my parents' accent, but also the area that I was brought up in Scotland. It's not a very strong dialect, strong accent there. It's like my accent, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Scotland.
Oh, Scotland's beautiful. You're gonna have to come at some point. I know you were planning a trip at one point, but
Yeah.
it's lovely. Like I was brought up near Edinburgh in a little seaside village, so right opposite the beach. It's lovely. And then moved to Edinburgh for university, which again is just a beautiful city. It doesn't really feel like a capital city because it feels smaller than that, but the buildings are just incredible. And to have a castle in the middle of the city is just, you can't really imagine it, really.
What's your favorite place in Scotland?
Probably my home village. Yeah, on the bay. It's a lovely walk.
And what other places have you visited? Now you're in New Zealand, but we'll talk about this later. Like what other countries?
Other countries?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a fan of traveling, as you probably guessed.
Yeah.
Same as you. When I was at university, I made a lot of friends who are from Asia. So this was amazing because I got to go and visit them all in Singapore, Philippines, Japan, which was really interesting and such a different world in different ways. The food was so different and so incredibly tasty, and the culture as well, slightly different. And yeah, I really enjoyed my trips over to Asia. I really enjoy exploring Europe. I haven't made it to Bulgaria yet, though, so that'll be next on the list.
Yeah, you definitely like it. One of my students from England is coming in June, I think. Also in the mountains, in different mountains, not where I am now, but she's also very excited. It's going to be her first time.
Yeah.
So maybe you can be next. But
Yeah.
now you're far away from Europe. That's probably the problem. So can you tell me a little bit about your job?
Yep. So I'm a doctor, but I work in palliative care. So this is the care for people at end of life. So usually in that sort of last year of life. I love it. Like, I'm so pleased that I found my passion in my work, which a lot of people can't say that they can. It's such a privilege to be able to help people in that difficult time of life and their families. But also recognizing that everyone's going to go through it at some point, and it's such a taboo subject. It's a shame that it's such a taboo when everyone's going to go through it, but it makes it more scary for people. So I really enjoy being able to talk to people about how it looks like at the end of life and what to expect.
And do you see any differences between this job in Scotland and now in New Zealand?
I think culturally, New Zealand and Scotland are similar on many fronts. I've seen a difference, and it might be more about the town I'm living in now, which has a really strong sense of community around it, and family wrap around a lot more when someone's nearing end of life, particularly in Māori culture. They'll have huge, big extended whānau, like family, who will all chip in and support someone when they're dying, and that's really lovely to see. Obviously, there are still care homes and rest homes here as well, but you see, I don't know what the proportions are, but I see a lot of people being cared for at home, which is really nice.
Okay. So why did you choose New Zealand? Not, let's say, Australia or Canada?
I always fancied visiting New Zealand because I always thought it was a little bit like Scotland with this, like the landscapes and the mountains. And I felt the temperature would be a little bit better than Australia. Plus it was English speaking, which helps for the job I do. I need to be able to speak the language fluently. So that was the reason. And as a UK citizen, it's slightly easier to get a visa to come across to New Zealand.
So it's not that rainy in New Zealand as in Scotland, right?
Say again?
It's not that rainy in New Zealand as in Scotland.
No, at least not in the spot I live in now. It's definitely brighter.
And this like place is called Whanganui, right?
Yes, Whanganui.
So can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, Whanganui. I think it means big harbor. The translation is what I've learned, and it's a lovely town. I love it. It's on the North Island of New Zealand. It's about 50,000 people. A very high Māori proportion population, one of the highest in the country, which is really interesting to learn more about that culture. And lots of artists here, so you get a lot of really interesting artwork around the place, which is fun. But probably the most important part of Whanganui is the river, the Awa, the Whanganui River, which is very special to the people here, and it's one of the first rivers to be given, I don't know if it's quite human rights, but under law it's protected as a river. It's been given special rights. So you can't pollute it, and they have a lot of rules around this river to keep it safe, which is really quite interesting politically and historically as well.
And I remember when you moved there, you did some language course, right? Like the local language.
Yes, I did it was just a little 6-week introduction to Te Reo Māori, the Māori language, which I thought might be helpful going to visit people at home, so I could say at least, hello, how are you? And that's another whole language in itself. It's so different to any other language again. Even Polish was different to French and Spanish, and now we have Māori, which is even the concepts within Te Reo Māori I struggled to understand because it's very abstract for me, like the collective, and the words don't have literal translation, so it's really hard to understand it, I think. But it's a beautiful language. I'd love to learn more of it. Yeah.
Can you tell now that you have found a more difficult language than Polish?
I think they're different in different ways. So I think Polish is very difficult grammatically and pronunciation wise, but I think Māori, there are only so many letters or sounds in Māori, I think, but I think that Te Reo Māori is more complex from an understanding the concepts behind the words for me.
Okay.
So yeah, the pronunciation is maybe a little bit easier than Polish.
Okay. So let's switch our roles for a few seconds. You'll be the teacher, I'll be the student. Can you teach me, let's say, 2 words in Maori?
Okay. Well, the first word is what we used to say hello or thank you, and that's ke ora.
Kia ora.
Yeah. Kia
And
ora.
what was it? Thank you?
Thank you and hello.
Oh, both.
Yeah.
So I learned 2 words basically.
Yeah.
Learning
In
one.
one.
Okay. I like this language.
Yeah.
Kia ora.
Yeah. Kia ora.
And did I say thank you now or hello?
I don't know. That's up to you.
Okay. And one more, please.
Probably the other really important one I use is whānau.
Whanau.
Whānau. Yeah.
Whanau.
Yeah, it's WHANAU.
Okay, but it sounds whanau.
Whānau.
Whanau.
Yeah, it means family.
Family. Okay. Whanau. Kia
But
ora
in one,
whanau.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. You're a good teacher. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. But whānau is really interesting. I hadn't realized that whānau is it means family, but it's the smallest number, is my understanding. So there's no I in Te Reo Māori.
Oh,
Whānau
you.
is the smallest.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. I watched the documentary. We also talked about it.
Yeah.
About this language in the Amazon
Yeah.
forest. Yeah, and there were also very interesting concepts of like the community. I think is more important than the individual and things like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting back to Polish.
Stick to what we know.
Yeah. So what is like the reason that you keep learning it? Like, I mean, we know it's difficult and challenging, but there must be also something you like about it, right?
I mean, I've always loved learning languages. If I hadn't have studied medicine, I really wanted to do languages at university. And I do like the challenge of learning a language. It is very helpful for me on a personal level with friends and family who speak Polish, and some of them don't speak as much English, so that's helpful. Yeah, but also I suppose if I ever go back to work in the UK, there are a lot of Polish people in the UK who I often meet as patients, so it's quite helpful there as well on a professional level to make people feel comfortable to be able to say a few words in Polish in their own language. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I need to keep practicing. 5 minut minimum.
Tak, dokładnie. Dokładnie. What is like something you have, thought was very difficult, but over time became it's easier or even very easy? Is there anything like that?
In
With
Polish.
learning? Yeah.
I think some of the words that I can say now. I remember when I first started learning, before we even had classes, Karol was teaching me how to say mężczyzna.
Yeah.
And I could not do it. It took me ages to be able to say it, just because you had to just figure out how to get your mouth around the word. And now, yeah, it's not a problem anymore, those types of things.
Okay, so like pronunciation wise, it's becoming easier. And what about the grammar?
The grammar. It's not my favorite.
Yeah.
No,
But
it's
like, what was the most confusing part?
knowing which endings to use when and remembering them all. I think also getting understanding of whether something's feminine or masculine to then change it. And then you have these ones that surprise you because you think they're feminine and they're not. And then you have to sort of take a double take on that when you're figuring out how to then change the endings for the right type of grammar and the right case. I think it's certainly, the more you're immersed in it and exposed to it, you start to get a feel for what sounds and what looks right, even if you don't know why it is right. Certainly when I'm writing my sentences, and I'll write it and I'll think, well, that looks right, even though I'm not quite sure if it's the right ending. And I'll go with it. Usually it's correct. Which is good.
So, to summarize, there is hope, right?
There is hope.
There is hope. Yeah.
Might take me another 5 years, but we'll get there.
No, I think there is a point where, as you said, like now you feel certain things sound right just because you have saw them or you have said them or you have, just used them that many times and it's becoming easier.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about Karol's marathons and, the things that were described in the article you sent me? I think they were very interesting.
Oh, yes. So, as you know, Karol loves running. He used to do a lot of rowing when he was younger. And then when that stopped, he needed another ridiculous endurance sport to put his mind to. So now he's doing a lot of marathons. And he decided he wanted to do an ultramarathon, 100 kilometers, and fundraise at the same time for the hospice I work for. So he did this 100-kilometer run around an area in New Zealand called Taupo, which is one of the biggest volcanic lakes in the country. And he did a great job. He absolutely smashed it. And he managed to raise something like $2,500 or something for a hospice, which is really, really good. Yeah, it was really good. And he got a little newspaper article out of it as well, which was fun. A good one to print off and save.
Yeah. And have you ever talked about this? Maybe you want to run as well, or?
I have tried and I have failed. It's not going to happen. I have my own. Yeah, during COVID, I tried to join in a little bit and we did a park run, but yeah, he was very patient with me. But I can run, I just don't enjoy it. I would rather do something else for exercise. So
Yeah, you can dance, right?
yeah, I enjoy dancing. This is definitely my form of exercise while Karol runs.
So tell me about your successes in dancing.
Yeah. So I just did a big dancing competition, like Strictly Come Dancing, which was my absolute dream. I've always wanted to do something like this. My hospice, it was the first time they've organized an event like this, but it was as a big fundraiser again, and they needed 10 couples from the community to dance. So I said I would be happy to do that. Well, I was actually asked to because they tried to get my senior doctor to do it and she refused, and she said, no, Libby's going to do it, not me. So I was like, that's fine, super happy to do it. It was only a few weeks ago now when I was doing the jive. So we did 12 lessons with a dancing professional. And I was teamed up with a gentleman from the local Whanganui. And we won. Yay!
Yeah.
So this was
Great.
really good. It was lovely to get all dressed up and makeup done and dance. It was really good fun. I had a great time, and everyone's continued it since. So this is nice as well.
But was it very difficult to learn all these steps and like bumps and everything?
It was. Well, it was. I've done a bit of dancing before, so it was a little bit. It was okay, but it was very fast. It was very energetic, the jive, and it's also quite hard to dance with someone else. I've not done a lot of dancing with someone else leading. Thankfully, my dance partner he'd done a bit of rock and roll before, so that was useful. But yes, I was very out of puff at the end of it.
Yeah. So let's say, let's role play this situation where, let's say I don't speak Polish, but I have a Polish girlfriend.
Okay.
And now I want to start learning Polish, and I will ask you a few questions about this.
Okay.
So, hi Libby.
Hi, Janusz.
I was thinking I have a Polish girlfriend now, so maybe I should start learning Polish, and I know you have been learning for some time, so what do you think about it?
I think it's a great idea. I think you should. I think it's a really interesting language, and I think you should go for it.
But I've heard it's very, very difficult.
Nothing's difficult if you put your mind to it. Depends what your attitude is.
Okay.
It's a difficult language, but there are lots of difficult languages. And if it's going to be interesting and useful, then you should try it.
And when you started learning it, what did you do first?
We started mostly with the pronunciation. when we started learning about the alphabet and basic useful greetings and sort of that informal level of language to start with. The useful stuff, so that when you're in the street, you can ask people where to go and that type of thing.
Okay. And I've heard there are some kind of cases or something. What do you think about them?
The cases are complicated, but you get your head around them. And after a while, they do start to slowly make sense, which is good.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think I'll try. Thank you. Thank you.
Should. I'll support you in that. And Janusz as a teacher.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you. So how long have you been in New Zealand now?
In July, it will be 2 years.
Okay. And what places have you visited in New Zealand?
Quite a lot. We've visited a lot of the North Island because Whanganui is very central, so it's easy to get out to different places for the weekend. So we have visited lots of geothermal areas, which have been really interesting. And I know I've told you a little bit about them already. Rotorua and Taupo, where you can have these incredible geothermal baths, and you can see the steam rising out of the ground from all that geothermal activity, which is really amazing. Some of it doesn't smell great because it's very sulfurous, so you get this eggy smell.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. I have managed to ski on a volcano, which is pretty cool. Just close to Whanganui in the national park area. And we have explored a lot of vineyards, which have been lovely because New Zealand's wine is one of my favorite in the world. So we've ticked off a few different areas where you can do cycling wine tours and things. And we got to go and see a glacier in South Island, which was amazing. So for Karol's 30th, we went and hiked on the glacier, which was amazing. There's so much to do here, and it's just, yeah, the landscapes are incredible. We still have a lot to explore.
And have you tried any local food, from the like natives over there?
Yeah. So one of my colleagues at work, actually, she's Māori, and she took it on herself to give me and get me to try all of her favorite Māori cuisine. One is when is it called hangi? I think it's called hangi, where you cook meat and vegetables under the ground. So you dig a hole and you cook everything underground, and then you cover it up I think it's for a very long time, like a whole day. And it was so good. It was so tender. The meats and the vegetables were amazing. So that was really quite special. And then a lot of people dive for seafood. So there are these beautiful shells here called paua shells. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're really big and they're really shiny inside. And the seafood in the paua shell, a lot of people will use to make different dishes.
Are these some kind of predators or something?
No. I don't think so. It's just like shellfish. No, it's literally like a shell, like oyster.
Yeah, but they like open themselves and they catch something and they grow. No, it's not like that.
No, sadly not.
Okay.
They're just very beautiful. So I've also tried this as well, which is lovely.
Australia is famous to eat all these dangerous animals, and I talked with my student Robert about these things, so I was wondering if you also have some crazy predators in New Zealand, or it's rather safer.
No, thankfully not. It's a lot safer here. I don't think there are any worrying predators, thankfully, which is good. There used to be a long, long time ago, I think, like big eagles that were massive, but they are now extinct, so we're safe.
Okay.
You can see them in the museums. They're huge, but not anymore.
Yeah.
It's the sand flies. They're annoying.
Another thing I wanted to talk about with you was also related to your job, and if there is any AI application in what you do.
At the moment or in the future?
Both.
Both. At the moment, there's not a lot of AI in palliative care anyway. I think because it's a very communication focused part of medicine, so it's all about talking, so it would be quite hard to do that. But for things like drug prescriptions, potentially in the future, that's something AI could move into, making sure that prescriptions are always safe and within certain limits. It's difficult in palliative care because there's not a lot of evidence base for the medicines we're using. So I don't know how that would work with AI if there isn't evidence for medicines, whether that would then cause problems. But I know it's starting to be used in radiology for scans and for x-rays. One of my friends recently did a job looking into that and how AI can be used to look at x-rays, chest x-rays, and compare it to what humans saw, which is quite interesting. So I think it'll come through there, definitely.
I know you've been to a few conferences. What kind of topics do you discuss there?
Well, a lot of the conferences I've been to recently have been palliative care focused conferences. It's a lot about different cultures and how we interpret death and how death looks to different cultures, which is interesting. But also different medications we use to help with symptoms, and a lot of discussion about assisted dying as well, which is legal in New Zealand at the moment, and a lot of other places are debating it. So this is often a bit of a forefront for discussions, which is quite interesting.
Yes.
Had a big.
Can you tell me a little bit about these cultural differences when it comes to death?
So I'm trying to think of any like definite examples.
Yes.
Obviously, different cultures have different spiritual needs, which is quite interesting. A lot of places will bless, for us at hospice here, whenever someone dies in one of the rooms, it will be blessed with a karakia, which is a Māori, not a poem, but it's sort of a closing off or an opening statement, not a statement, but a poem. Which I know I'd never experienced that before, and I quite like that. I think it's a lovely way of blessing the room and blessing the person who's moving on. Certainly within the Maori culture I've experienced here, and I'm certainly not an expert in any way, but they always call out to their ancestors whenever they're having meetings or introducing someone new to the group or to their whānau. They will always sort of invite their ancestors and remember their ancestors in that, which is very nice and doesn't and a lot of other traditions and cultures.
Okay. I've seen some documentaries. I think it was even a few years ago in Japan. They have some kind of like, robots, old people who live usually, alone,
Oh,
and
yes.
they have, these small like robots, and the robot is like interacting with this old person, can, even call emergency if something happens, or order some pills for this old
Oh,
person, and things like this.
yeah.
So I was wondering, um, do you think similar things will happen also, like in the West, so-called West, or like in countries like New Zealand? Is there Have you heard of any plans to introduce some kind of these kind of technologies?
I haven't heard of it, and I think it probably depends a lot on how society perceive it, whether society will allow it into their home and into their loved one's home, I guess. A lot of people are very skeptical of that kind of thing, I feel.
Yeah,
But it probably does have a place for people who are living by themselves and are, physically vulnerable, might fall over and need support. Yeah, I haven't seen that kind of thing in place anywhere, but certainly robots are used in some hospitals and things to run bloods to other parts of the hospital and back and that type of thing, and they're being used in that way. Certainly an interesting space to watch going forward, I think.
yeah. Um, let's stay with the robots, but speculate a little bit about the future of um, language learning.
Okay.
So let's imagine it's like 2030,
Yeah.
my favorite year,
Not that far
and
away.
yeah, and let's say again you have a friend who wants to learn Polish, but
Mhm.
this time on, let's say, the language learning market, you have not only teachers like me, but also some kind of AI avatars or even robots who look like real people, and things like this.
Mhm.
Um, and let's imagine you know you already speak Polish fluently, but you have also, a few years back, you have also had a few lessons with this kind of technology,
Okay.
and you were impressed, but still you are not like sure if it's like more, or even ethic, or even if it's better to have lessons with a real teacher like me, or maybe you should try also some new technologies, maybe a mix.
Mhm.
What do you think about it? What would be your advice in 2030, providing that these technologies exist?
Thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I always think that it's good to learn in lots of different ways. Um, you know, using different resources is always a better way of learning things. Like watching films, listening to music, working with someone, practicing. So I probably would say it's a good thing to have a bit of both.
yeah,
You can work with a teacher, but then supplement that with a robot or AI or whatever it is. Um, yeah, I think so.
yeah. I agree. I think this is probably going to be a reality even sooner than most
Mm,
people think. And I think this is going to motivate even more people to learn the language.
I hope so.
Um, yeah, so I'm looking forward to this kind of future.
You're not worried about it? Are you going to make your own version?
You know, there was a point like 2 years ago, more or less, when I was a little bit worried,
Mm,
but thanks to this worry, I started working on different projects. One of
mm,
which is also this like podcast is based on this project.
yeah,
I believe whatever technologies are going to be available in the future, um, people like me will still have their role,
yeah,
and I'm really excited about teaching more people this language, and
yeah,
at the same time, I will learn new things.
yeah.
I will be able to connect with more people, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's not like real me, but even if it's like, let's say, Janusz AI, who is going to teach, but also learn from my students. This is
Yeah,
like the one of the uh, things I really love about my job is that I learn a lot from my students,
mm,
and I think Janusz AI is going to have huge opportunities to learn as well.
yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, and how do you see in the future of your job? It's going to be
I,
like Libby AI as well, or
I virtual now. I mean, on a personal front, I have to study a lot more and go through different rotations. But from a palliative care perspective, I think it's going to be increasing demand for palliative care services, which is a good thing for me, I guess. um, but unfortunately, from my studies looking at global health and palliative care, it sounds like most governments don't recognize that. So the resources aren't really going into palliative care and death, unfortunately. So I think it could be quite a rocky road ahead, unfortunately, but a lot of goodwill there, which is good. Certainly, I think more funding and resources should be going into hospices and palliative care, but I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. But it would be interesting. It would be interesting.
I think you know either Janusz and Libby or Janusz AI and Libby AI will have something more in common. I believe in the future, um, more older people will
Mm.
learn languages,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's going to just give them like a purpose or just pleasure of learning new things. Even when
Yeah.
you are older, you can still learn a lot. And
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Def- I
yeah, yeah.
think people are living longer and finding things to do with their retirement because they are living longer than they used to be. So languages will probably be a big part of that for many people, which is cool.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, so in this year,
Mm-hmm.
you have told me now you're planning like a vacation or something.
Yes.
You go to Asia, right?
I'm not sure yet. Would like to visit Australia because I've not been yet. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I need to go South America and maybe Canada, and then loop back to the UK. Do a big like 5 or 6 months stint traveling would be really cool.
Okay, so there is a huge
So
plan. Okay, okay. Give
next year,
me,
next year,
sorry,
next
next
year.
year.
Mm.
Okay, okay. And where do you have any plans like what places in Australia?
Tasmania is the main one that I want to
Yeah.
go to. But maybe I'll have to ask Roberts for some
Yeah,
spot.
he'll be excited though. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this will be good.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
yeah, this is the next big plan. So we'll see.
okay, okay. And what about the dancing?
Oh, I will
Still,
keep dancing. Keep dancing. Just keep dancing.
and
Yes.
so you still do the course, or you do what kind of dances do you do now?
So I've started salsa classes with a few of the other people who did the competition. So this is a course, like a 6-week course. But I will just keep trying different things along the way. I just like seeing which courses are around and jump in.
Okay, okay. And any commitments to learning Polish?
Oh, I will always be committed to learning Polish. Just needs 5 minutes minimum.
5 minutes minimum, yeah.
I would like to do another intensive course because I think I did do like a month's course in Warsaw a few years ago, which was really good.
Yeah.
For that intensive immersion. But we'll have to fit it in somewhere.
And is it difficult to speak Polish with you, with Karol? But in general, do you think it's difficult for people in your situation to use the language with their partners?
I think it probably just depends. It's hard to make yourself do it because it's not the easy option. So you have to really dedicate yourself to say, right, whenever we have dinner, we are going to just talk in Polish. But it's really hard to keep that up because you naturally just want to chat at the end of the day because it takes up a lot of energy, right? It's
Yes.
it takes a lot of energy at the end of a working day to then chat in Polish. For me, and then I think it's odd for maybe for partners because they're used to speaking to you in English or whichever language it is. It's then a bit odd to be speaking in Polish with you because that's not your usual language. So I think it's just getting through those barriers and making yourself do it. Yeah.
Yeah. For all these years, I've always tried to motivate my students, and usually it doesn't work the way I wished.
Yeah.
But I think starting with just a few words, if you commit to, let's say, just 2 sentences today,
Yeah.
and maybe tomorrow 3,
Yeah.
and add up more and more to these small things, I believe it can work over time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we can wrap up with this statement that if you do 1 or 2 sentences with your partner in Polish every day, you will improve faster. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And different sentences though. There is
Yeah.
main ones.
Yes, yes, yes.
Definitely.
Okay,
Sounds
okay, Libby, it was a huge pleasure, and thank you very much for your time and for this conversation.
no problem. Thank you very much, Janusz.
Yeah, I had some kind of a half dream where we did this podcast, and then it turned out I didn't record it.
It could happen one day.
Yeah, it turned out I forgot to click the record button. And then I told you this, and you were a little bit disappointed.
I probably would be, to be honest.